Alright everyone, today is going to be one of those days where everything is Trump related for the most part. I think I've got one video on my docket here that's not. We got to talk about his Twitter because he threatened Rouhani, president of Iran, on Twitter. He did it all in caps too. Now he does this much like misspelling words occasionally in order to get people to talk about the issue because he knows if he says something that is like really sensible and mostly people would support him. Most Americans don't like Iran. I don't fall under that heading. I don't consider it a credible threat. I don't care really if they even get nukes at this point. But I'm in the minority on that. I realize, especially among Republicans and independents, the vast majority of people oppose Iran. At some point, I expect the Democrats to come out in favor of theocracy because of this. So he threatens Rouhani. He's like, don't you threaten the United States again. Basically, consequences will never be the same. It'll be dire. You'll all be destroyed. He's done this before. He certainly did it to North Korea. He's done this to states in order to basically get them to the table to bargain. By the way, the North Korea stuff is still churning ahead. It's just that a lot of that is by necessity going to happen behind the scenes. So don't believe everything you read about the fact that North Korea has gone back to the way it was and they snubbed Trump. No, not really. This is normal diplomacy. This is just how it happens to happen with a nation that you've been at war with for, 70 plus years. Yeah, it's not going to be instant. It's not always going to be amiable. There's going to be a lot of bumps along that road. But you got to take the road anyway because the only other road leads to nuclear Armageddon. It's a good idea, so I support Trump fully in his endeavors with North Korea. Iran is a little bit different than North Korea. It's not in the same region of the world, not the same culturally. The diplomatic body is a bit different. You got to understand, Iran, technically speaking, has a representative government. And right now it is predominantly staffed by liberal individuals. They've actually liberalized somewhat over the last few years. There are systemic problems there. Women's rights is a main problem. Persecution of certain religious minorities, certainly homosexuals and so forth. In that vein, though, they're not really that much different from Saudi Arabia. And we're partnered with them, military allies, buddy, huge amount of trade. We buy, millions and millions of barrels of oil. I see them as roughly akin to one another. The big difference is that there are other nations in the region that tolerate Saudi Arabia and their sort of diaspora politics. Because Saudi Arabia has major ties to sort of an even partner, I think, at this point with Pakistan. Pakistan has the nukes, but Saudi Arabia has the energy and the money. Sudan certainly is part of that. Egypt, some of these other countries. Iran doesn't really have that many allies. They're basically a vassal of Russia. And here's the thing I would say, first and foremost, with regards to threatening Iran on Twitter. Although I know what he's doing, and I know Trump's not going to haul off and attack Iran, he's doing this to try to get a new nuclear deal struck. I don't really care about the issue because, unlike North Korea, they do not at this time have, as far as we know, even the most primitive atomic weapon. North Korea has hydrogen bombs. It's a little bit different. North Korea is a credible threat to our allies in the region. Iran is not, because the only people they could attack are nations that are part of a massive alliance, that is the Saudi-led Pakistani co-opted alliance. It's a nuclear alliance, even though it's older gen weapons. They've got more nukes than North Korea. Iran's not going to tangle with them. The manpower would be so lopsided it would be a very quick fight, and the other would be Israel. Well, Israel has at least 100 multi-megaton weapons using nuke triggers they got, by the way, from the United States back in the 70s. The Pentagon reported in the mid-80s, oh yeah, they've got full thermonuclear weapons. They've got a very sophisticated program on par with the UK. Yeah, and by the way, they've got the Samson option, so Iran is probably not going to attack them. Here's the thing, though. Although I understand that he's not actually being jingoistic and that he's trying to get negotiation to speed up by threatening them, by putting pressure on them, I still ideologically oppose threatening a state that fundamentally is not a credible threat. They are not a nuclear state. You can say all you want, well, they're trying to develop nuclear weapons. Until the Bush era, the concept that you would attack someone to prevent development without specific and very, very clear evidence that there was an attempt being made to obtain that material, that concept would have been considered a little bit out there. You would have been labeled a warmonger. It'd be like, what are you doing? It's like be what maybe the left would have been protesting against. The other part of my take is this: the left are being total hypocrites about this. They're sitting there warmongering after Russia, a major nuclear power, the only state in the world other than the US that's capable of more or less ending the world with its stockpile. They're warmongering after them, pretending that we should snub them, no diplomacy, Trump should be insulting and just raging about Putin every single day. A major nuclear power, far more manpower than Iran, far bigger economy than Iran, the master of Iran, by the way, the ones that control Rouhani's every move for the most part. Major nuclear power, huge air presence, lots and lots of tanks and artillery and every wonderful thing under the sun that you can kill people with. You want to warmonger after them, and you don't see that as problematic. But then you act like Trump is going to start a nuclear war by making a mean tweet about a non-nuclear state that fundamentally, for the most part, it's surrounded by enemies. By the way, a Russian vassal. It's Russia Jr. sitting in Central Asia. That's what Iran essentially boils down to. I see that as massively hypocritical. To suggest that we should warmonger after the main state as part of that alliance, but that going after the minor partner somehow causes a nuclear exchange, that doesn't make any sense. You are far more dangerous to the world if you're warmongering after Russia. But the thing is, Russia, because it's a major player, has been used as a scapegoat for the DNC's problems, and Podesta's problems, and the DC leaks, and the deep state, and the intel agencies, and all these, so they can't ease up. They have to warmonger. They have to pretend there are Reds under the bed and that we're back in the 1960s. You know, Obama said, hey, the foreign policy of what was it, the 1980s called. You know, it's the current era, Mitt. Russia's no longer a foe. They're just sort of an economic competitor. Well, why don't you listen to Obama? He told you that before. Or are you going to admit that Obama was wrong? He didn't know what he was doing, and he underestimated the Russian threat. They're still commies, we know it, and now we're fucked. Now, which one are you going to admit to? You're totally wrong, or your savior was totally wrong? One of those two things has to be real. I, of course, say it's actually, ironically, because people think in black and white, it can actually be in the middle. Yeah, Russia's a potential foe, but right now they're not exactly aiming a bunch of nuclear weapons at DC and threatening to press the little red button. Trump is trying to reverse course. We're slowly sliding into a new, really bad Cold War. It could be worse than the one we've already gone through. Do you want to spend another 5 decades having really, really great music and style and probably more drugs and everything, but at the same time having to live in constant paranoia and fear while the deep state props up its own corruption by saying, look at those guys, they're worse than we are? That's what happened. Cold War practically destroyed our representative system. Because the Cold War allowed corrupt individuals to say, yeah, we're siphoning more money off of you than we should be. Like, you know, before the nuclear era, things were great compared to now. Yeah, we're taking 10 times more money than we did during the interwar period. But we need it because, look, those guys will abuse you worse if they take over the world. And the Russians did that, and the US did that, and every other major player does that. We need to stay powerful, so pony up your money. You know, basically give it all up to Uncle Sam, give it all up to Uncle Stalin or whatever. We'll keep you safe from the other guys, even though they do the same thing that we're doing. It's madness, literally mad. But no, I'm not worried about Iran. Out of principle, I wouldn't threaten them. I don't consider them a credible threat. They're not even a credible threat to the smaller nations in the region. They're all part of an intricate and very strong alliance backed by the Saudis' money and Pakistani nuclear weapons, or they're Israel, in which case, hey, they're kind of peripheral to that alliance anyway, and they've got their own nukes. Israel has more nuclear power than Pakistan. Trust me, Netanyahu is not actually worried about Iran suddenly attacking them. It's impossible. Iran would cease to exist. He's not worried. He just drums that up every once in a while to stay in power. It's been sort of like a traditional thing. You always drum up a foreign threat in order to stay in power. Look what Bush did. Don't change course in the middle of the river, basically. We're already in Iraq. We're already in Afghanistan. I fuck up constantly. I'm an asshole. I'm committing war crimes. But hey, we're at war, so you should re-elect me. Not that an alternative was given. That's the reason that John Kerry lost. It's just a shitty candidate. It's not coincidental that Mitt Romney and John Kerry sort of look and sound similar. They campaigned similar. They're basically the same person. People are like, ooh, yeah, how could you not vote for Mitt Romney to kick out Obama? It's like, well, man, mainly because they're a lot similar. There's no point. But yeah, on Russia, it was funny because now the Democrats sound like Mitt Romney on steroids. So I'll wait and see. Eventually, they're going to have to stabilize their message. Is it or is it not a good idea to start another Cold War? That's all we have to ask ourselves. I say no. The Democrats say yes. The Never-Trumpers say yes. Trump kind of says no, but then he threatens Iran, and it's like maybe not the most helpful thing. But it's really funny anyway. That's about all. Peace out.